We used to think that today science and technology is more advanced than ever. However, hundreds and thousands of years ago there were an invention that to this day cannot explain the science who thinks that too, the creation of these technologies involved extraterrestrial civilizations or even mystical beings are in fact case. We will try to explain in this video. Greek fire is a secret weapon of the Byzantine Empire to this day, generates a large number of theories though, it has been more than 1,000 years since the Greek fire was a destructive weapon that, used by the Byzantine Empire against their enemies especially actively by the Greek. Fire was used in naval battles all because he was so flammable, that putting it out with water was easy. It is impossible that there is a given that at interacting with combustion water, became even more active that really struck at the Greek fire. Is that armies were taking over from Byzantines this hot mixture however so, and they could not create it either. It was possible to recreate a weapon that powered the Greek fire and, it is not surprising because to this day, no one knows exactly what the ingredients are, included in the combustible mixture. Greek fire was created in the 7th century by a Byzantine inventor named Kalin. The nickname is considered to have been experimenting with, I haven't found any different materials yet, the perfect combustible mixture. Then he sent the formula to the Byzantine, to the emperor, when the emperor received the form that ordered the development of a gun based on her. That's how the siphon of the cannon turned out, which was sending out deadly fire. Side of the enemy. Greek fire also produced a strong psychological, the impact on the enemy he emitted aloud. The roar and large amounts of smoke are very similar to a dragon's breath because of that the weapon was effective on the enemy's. Formula held up Byzantines in strict secrecy already. It was used as the basis for a modification of this weapon in the form of a grenade, and although many opponents have tried to reproduce the secret of Greek fire and which one of them hasn't made it to this day, no one knows the secret formula for sure. Tannoy combustible mixture exist different assumptions about the technologue and components, but the exact answer we have, there are no researchers yet. Damascus steel. For centuries there have been legends and steel from Damascus swords that were made from this. The material was incredibly strong, sharp, and break the swords of the competitors in the battle. Therefore, the owner of a weapon made of Damascus steel was becoming practically invincible. For a long time, scientists, even while possessing the modern technology, could not to unravel the secret of Damascus steel. The material itself was mined in India, then Cavalli in the Middle East, and already after sold in Damascus. So continued for centuries, in addition to its incredible durability and the sharpness of Damascus swords distinguished unusual pattern on the surface, something similar to the ripples European wars have learned of Damascus steel during the Crusades. The Crusades in the 11th century and were impressed by their sharpness and durability, but most importantly, that no one could understand the secret, Damascus steel. No one in the world could, to repeat a similar weapon on this account. There were many theories, among them were the weirdest ideas are some assumed that the metal first fed to the chickens and then harvested from their litter, or there was still a theory that after forging the sword was thrust into the body, a muscular slave, so that his strength transferred to the metal. Were appearing these crazy theories just because even scientists didn't understand how it turns out. Yes, the gun's mask has gradually become an active, firearms proliferate, and swords have become increasingly irrelevant, and therefore the secret of manufacturing to naval guns was lost, and the blacksmiths managed to repeat the distinctive row as it should be. The swords of the sea, however, they do not have any. It was possible to make a weapon the same way, strong and sharp. Opening of the secret Damascus steel happened by accident only. 40 years ago, scientists experimented with creating ultra-durable and resilient metals and were able to reproduce the quality of those legendary Damascus swords, but to achieve this result, scientists were only able to apply the most advanced technology to control the temperature and chemical, the composition is still unclear how. In this way 1,000 years ago it was possible to forge Damascus, Michigan, where modern methods of production. One theory is that Damascus was hardened in the blood of dragons. Scientists are of course skeptical about this idea, but the author of the famous Game of Thrones was inspired by the story of Damascus steel when he came up with the most legendary Valyrian swords. Like this one, if you've seen it, famous series, Lycurge Cup, this Roman chalice which is kept in British Museum for 1,600 years, it known as the Cup of Lycurgus. The glass bowl is so named because it depicts a scene with King Lycurgus of Thrace originally. When it is illuminated from the front, it is obvious that the vessel is green, but when the light falls on the cup from behind, it becomes distinctly red. This amazing property has puzzled scientists for many decades after how 70 years ago they ended up with this artifact. This mystery has succeeded to unravel, and only recently have researchers from the U.K. have carefully studied the shrapnel under a microscope and found that the Roman artisans were pioneers of nanotechnology. For more than 1,500 years back they figured out to impregnate the glass silver and gold particles, and they ground the particles to an unbelievable size. It is equal to about 1,000 of the size of a small grain of salt. Similar to approach meant that the Romans absolutely were aware of what they were doing. Here's how this nanotechnology works. When the light falls on the cup, then electronic metal particles interact in such a way that the color of the object begins to change depending on from the position of the observer. By researchers speculate that the glass also changed color depending on the drink which was poured in there. I'll remind you again that this technology is more than 1,500 years. Just imagine what the effect it had on his contemporaries was. But the interesting thing is that this ancient technology can be used scientists in the future in order to invent incredibly sensitive sensors that will help identify dangerous diseases at the earliest stage or detect criminals who are not conducted for these substances. A mysterious underground object in Malta. In the early 20th century, builders were digging sewers and accidentally stumbled upon the amazing underground structure. At first, they didn't understand at all what collided and began to use the place as a dumping ground. However, a little later this has attracted the attention of scientists and turned out to be that the structure in question, called the Halls of Weather, they are more than 6,000 years old, and according to archaeologists, the ancient inhabitants of Malta built this place for the collective burials in soft limestone. Were carved corridors and body chambers of the temple consisted of several tiers of. Scientists have speculated that there have been the lavish funeral processions of all. I have not become a place of burial for several thousand people near there. Beads of amulets were found in the remains, ceramics and carved figurines somewhat. The halls are still decorated with black and white chessboards and other ancient drawings. However, one of the most interesting and mysterious things found inside the temple is skulls of unusual elongated shape, and shape is not the only anomaly. These skulls are abnormally developed and temporal septum swelling on the back of the head, and not only the cause of these anomalies was shrouded in mystery and earnest. It has been suggested that it is alien remains. As for humans, this is too strange anomaly. Additional mystery and gave this fact that before 1985 the skulls were exhibited in the museum, the Malta, however, were later removed from the general access and are required to obtain special permission, and to obtain this permission was it's not just all that much more, persuaded the proponents of mystical theories that the skulls did not belong to human. The elongated skulls were in the different parts of our planet, for example, in South America. However, the scientists there were believe that they are a consequence of deliberate deformation. In some cultures have done so out of religious and aesthetic considerations. Of the skull were bandaged as the person grew, and they were changing however, outstretched. With the skulls from the Maltese temple all but, it's just that the researchers found out that they are not the result of artificial deformities. This fact further persuaded the supporters of Malta's extraterrestrial theory of power, relying on to the findings of local scientists claiming that these skulls undoubtedly belong to people. The reason for the unusual shape is still a mystery, by the way. Share your opinion in the comments. Do you believe in the existence of alien civilizations? Let's see how common it is. Idea, ancient flying machine. Many of you have heard of flying machines that, designed by the famous artist Leonardo da Vinci's inventor. However, for many centuries before Da Vinci came into being in ancient India were their projects flying cars, and some believe that the cars weren't just invented but also constructed. It is so-called Vimanas, flying chariots, which are mentioned in the ancient Indian texts. According to the text of the Vimana, were of different sizes and shapes, as well as could not only fly but also swim and move on the ground. In addition to Vimanas, regulated the speed and moved on quite a distance. The data on the design of the Viman and the basic principles of their management. Moreover, there are Indian historians who believe that in ancient India were absolutely built similar apparatuses, and they were even used. As another hypothesis is that Vimanas were not created by humans in ancient Indian texts. They got into because of the fact that people have been observing extraterrestrial objects that hit of our planet. Scientists mostly refer to the idea of the existence of such machines in the ancient world rather skeptically, and consider them only fictional mythical objects. And considering the fact that in some texts claimed that the Vimanas had the ability to fly in, they are unlikely to go to the moon, were more than fantasies. Don't forget to like it if you were interested in this video. Also subscribe to the channel and click on the bell to stay up to date with new clips, and, of course, share this video with his friends.